This year's Nobel Prizes certainly put the spotlight on AI. And as we navigate through a world where AI is transforming various sectors, it's interesting to explore both the benefits and the concerns that this powerful technology arises. My name is Paola Lundén. I'm the Chief of Staff at Cybercampus, and I'm a political scientist by training, and my interest in this topic comes from seeing other perspectives than the technical, such as societal and geopolitical. And it's my honor today to introduce this distinguished panel of experts, each bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to this conversation. We have Eva Fogelström, Director of Security Research at the Ericsson. Eva leads a team engaged in research and standardization to build security beyond 5G towards 6G. This covers areas like confidential computing, identity management, AI, post-quantum crypto, and methods for security assurance. We have Hedelin, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at Saab. Christian has extensive experience in the telecommunications industry and has held a number of different positions in the area of strategy, business development, and marketing at Ericsson. We have Katarina Lappalainen, Associate Professor in Public Law and Assistant Professor in Law and Information Technology at Stockholm University. Katarina leads projects on AI in regulatory enforcement and health data, and is involved in digital equality and human rights. And Asreen Rostami is a senior researcher at RISE and Stockholm University. And Asreen focuses on human-computer interaction, extended reality, and cybersecurity. And Asreen leads the human-centered cybersecurity research area at RISE. And Henrik Sandberg. It's a good panel today. Henrik is a professor at the Division of Decision and Control Systems at KTH, and his research interests include security of cyber-physical systems and includes, for example, fundamental limitations of control systems. Now, let's get started. I'd like to start with quite a general, broad question, and that is, what benefits does AI bring to your field? Eva, would you like to start?
Sure. So I work in research for Ericsson and security solutions, so we look a bit in the future. And I'd say we have used AI or machine learning for a long time. We use it in perhaps everywhere where we can use it. So we talk a lot about operational security, so looking at the states of the networks, situational awareness, and detecting things that are happening. We have used machine learning for false base station detection, for example, in the networks. We are using machine learning for compliance verification to see if parts of the networks are compliant to different regulations. And the list goes on. So I think it brings advantages. You can increase the performance a little bit on the security solutions that you bring, or the security aspects. Then I forgot what I was going to say. But I think that's the main thing. We see it in many different places, but it's quite, I'd say, tailor-made for the specific uses, so not a generic big AI. And it comes in to help the security expert.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. And Asreen, from the human-computer's perspective, what benefits does it bring to your field?
So, as Alexander said, it's still baby steps with the AI, and especially in relation to the practices and fields of research that we are working on. With XR, I can say examples. We are looking into how large language models can be used in turning NPCs, playing characters to more dynamic, responsive characters that when you are in XR for the simulator environments, for training environments. But on the side of the human-centered cybersecurity or on the side of the cybersecurity, it is what we are looking into facial recognition tools and AI systems to see that how we can not go exactly where the surveillance is going, but also to look into how we can use these kind of tools to help users in wherever environment that they are using technologies like security cameras to protect their privacy rather than putting them in the surveillance line of work.
Thank you. And Katarina, in your field,
Yes, there is the whole area of legal automation, for example. So it can be beneficial to government agencies when it comes to automated decision making, decision support systems. Well, that is both in the private and the public sector. And then you have the whole field of legal tech as well. That helps legal industry. It provides different tools, and I think it's all going to. That we're going to see a great development, I'm sure. Yeah, even in the area of law, and in particular legal industry.
Great, and Henrik, how about you?
Yeah, just my background is more from the operational technology, cyber-physical systems. So I think my interests are more in those application areas. And I think Eva brought up some of the uses, like for anomaly detection, helping operators who are monitoring power systems or manufacturing systems to detect anomalies. But I think there's also, I think in many cases we know kind of what optimal solutions are, but there's just to deploy them in these huge systems. We don't have time, we don't have the resources. So I think the AI can help there really to set things up, configure systems, and implement these solutions. I think that is very important.
Thank you. And Christian?
Yes, as has been mentioned before, I mean, within Saab, we have used analytical AI for quite a long time in areas like target recognition, computer vision, navigation in jammed environment, etc. But I think the new breakthrough now with generative AI is actually opening up totally new areas. And I think we are looking at 3 areas. First one is internal efficiency. How can we generate new content, manuals, streamline processes internally to become much more efficient. The second area is generative software generation. I think that is a big field where we see that we can generate much quicker functionality development that cannot be done actually by only manual programming. And the third area is, of course, to leverage the use of generative AI into cognitive systems that are aware about the surroundings and that can adapt. And I remember 3 decades ago, I actually did my graduate thesis within sensor fusion and computer vision. And at that time, we were having a hard time beating professional pilots of fighter jets in recognizing small objects, friends or foes type of challenge. It was possible to do that through deep neural networks, but the computing power in those days made it unrealistic to do in real time. And that is the big change now. Both the algorithms have been improved, but also the compute power, has significantly improved over the years. I mean, one NVIDIA GPU is equivalent to all the computers that we are using across Saab on 20,000 pieces. So the compute power and the generative AI domain has definitely created totally new application areas that are now realistic.
Yeah, interesting. And as we all know, 2 Nobel Prizes this year featured work on the development and application of AI. And it's quite interesting that at least 2 of the recipients hold quite opposing views about the future applications of the technology. For instance, Nobel laureate Geoffrey Hinton, he recently expressed concern about helping to create a technology that he now worries could cause serious danger to humanity. What's your view on this? Anyone who would like to start, or do you want me to ask you? Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I can relate to that feeling, actually. But I also think that it's good. So when technology evolves, it's good to take part in that, I think. And it's good to be in the driver's seat. It's good to have the transparency. So if you stop developing technology, it will develop somewhere else by someone else. And then we are not part of that. So I think the best way to actually take some kind of control of the situation and move forward in a good way is to take part.
Yes,
yeah, and
go ahead.
I can continue on that line. I think definitely there are big risks of artificial intelligence becoming weaponized. I mean, that is becoming the reality as we speak. But the best way in our view, and in my view, is that to defend against that, you need AI and machine learning. So everywhere from saturation attacks in the cyberspace to saturation attacks on the missile domain in the air domain. No human being can cope with those types of weaponized AI applications, if you say. So I'm conscious about the risks, but we are also I'm also very convinced that the only way forward is to actually meet such threats with even clever artificial intelligence to defend ourselves.
So it's like AI meets AI.
Yes.
In that sense. Katarina, would you like to expand
Yes,
on
naturally. I think it's very important with legislation, but of course not only sort of laws and rules and regulations. But what is also important is enforcement mechanisms and control mechanisms. So there is a quote from a famous legal philosopher, Roscoe Pound. There is law in books and law in action. So we certainly not only need rules and regulations to relate to, but we need very strong government agencies, courts, that can deal with these issues. That's not the solution to everything, but I think it's very, very important. And we have sort of the AI Act that is a milestone in this respect. There is also the Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence that is international. But I think we need a lot more of this. We might need specific legislation as well. And rules or global conventions and also global enforcement.
Yeah. Asreen, what do you think?
Well, I think we knew that there is danger with everything, right, with the technology. It's not the first technology that we are worried about. I think the only interesting thing maybe is that those that they were involved in creating this technology, they are now outspoken, they are coming out and they are talking about the potential dangers of it. To what level it can be dangerous, part of that, it is up to our imagination to be able to see that, how far the bad actors they can go and what potentials these technologies they provide. One thing that it reminds me, if you go back listening or reading the talk from Turing Award recipient in 1983, not even recently, Ken Thompson talks about how technology can be misused, how programming languages can be misused by putting a malicious code inside the compiler of the same code, right? And that's how this circle that something can create malicious become a Trojan horse itself. And I think the danger with AI is actually this one, going back to that, we don't really know who is creating these kind of technologies. While we are adopting these technologies, we are using it, and we don't really know that what content it feeds us, what information it feeds us, how we can verify it, how we can validate it. We still don't have a clear picture. And a lot of that process doesn't happen by us. It's not regulated by us. It's big giant companies, those that they have access to data sets. And I think that's the biggest danger, rather than thinking that AI is going to come overrule the human being. Possibly we need to take a couple of steps back and say that, okay, what is happening here? What is the immediate danger here now?
Okay, so I understand it correctly that you're referring to a small number of big corporations having a disproportionate amount of influence.
Among other things, because there are
Okay.
also other forces involved, right? There are political forces, there are financial forces. It's not just the big companies. Who becomes, as you said, who rules these kind of systems? Who has the power over it? And then what version of that maybe we are getting here is also another conversation.
Would you like to comment on that, Henry?
Yeah, I think I agree with what's been said mostly. Personally, I'm not so concerned about the like radically new threats. I think it's more the scale that you can just imagine the amount of automatically generated attacks. But I think the only way to defend is to use AI, sort of to configure the defenses and set it up. I mean, I think we know how to do it. It's just that we don't have the resources to implement it and monitor it and so on. I think there AI can help us.
Yeah.
One additional comment, because I agree to many other things that has been said before. I mean, within Saab we are having ethical guidelines when we develop autonomous systems that use lethal force. And that involves actually having a meaningful human interaction, that you always have someone that is responsible for actions so that you can't avoid deniability. But that being said, there will still be bad actors that doesn't follow rule of law or any type of regulation, and that is where we also need to be prepared to actually take away deniability and to actually be able to defend and act against those actors. And I think one example that is fantastic of a Swedish company doing that is Recorded Futures. I think they are a prime example of how they actually trawl every single information piece that is out there to find vulnerabilities and be able to actually act on those vulnerabilities and bad actors. So regulation is one thing, but I think there are also bad actors not following, so that is what we need to prepare for.
Yeah, exactly, because now the benefits and value that AI can bring is more or less exactly as available and accessible to actors with more malicious motives, right? In cybersecurity as well. And in light of that and the previous question, what can we do to ensure that people feel safe about using services based on AI? Because seeing how very pervasive it is. Would anyone like to start?
Well, I think regulation, you brought up the AI Act. I think that is one way, because it shows that let's say, the society cares also about the people using the AI. So that is one example. And then, of course, we need to build the security for the AI. We didn't touch upon that yet. But coming from a security perspective, whenever you deploy something, whenever you use something, you start with a threat and risk analysis to see what are the threats if I use this, what are the risks if I use this, and what do I do to mitigate that. And I think that's a healthy way of thinking in cybersecurity, but also when applying AI.
I can continue on that one. And I actually wanted to, before answering that one, I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned about human in the loop, having the human-computer interaction in perspective, right? And absolutely right. And I think it would be the shortcoming if we rely everything on the AI, we remove the human, right? We don't want that one. But there is also this risk that to what extent humans can act in between, being in the loop, and to what extent they have the autonomy, but also the time to act on it. And so I don't know if you have seen the news about Guardian recently posted how the target missile attacks are being, the AI systems are being used to identify locations or individuals. And then one of the operators was saying that, well, we have only 20 seconds to make the decision. And then that 20 seconds, in practice, it is nothing that you are making decision who survives, who doesn't, even if it is a simulator, right? So that one, with the pace that say you are getting these algorithms process the information. We cannot. But other strategies, we need to make sure that it is there, that it doesn't become human error and then blamed on the human, where we actually forgot about that human in the loop correctly. But with your question, you need to remind me again about the question.
Well, it's quite a broad question, but considering the risks that we've talked about and actors with malicious motives who have access to the same technology, what can we do to ensure that people feel safe about using services based on AI?
We can think about people in so many different groups of people. Who are we talking about? Are we talking about us as a researchers, that we have a fair amount of information about what is happening in different levels? Or are we talking about children that they can potentially become user of these tools? Or are we talking about the public that they may not have a computer science or AI or any field relevant to that kind of information? How can we tell them that a tool is safe or not? How can we tell them that the content that they are getting out of that tool is safe or not? And I think it is one of the shortcomings that we are facing, and I'm relying on, we had a study looking into the recent cybersecurity attacks in Sweden, the ransomware attacks in Sweden. And one of our participants, who was a CEO of a company dealing with the attack at the time, said, we don't really have any resources in Sweden or in EU to go and say that, is that okay to use this tool? We only accept it because it's a giant company behind it, and we know that we get support and troubleshooting and law and insurance by going to that company if something happens. And I think that perspective can also be applied, that what are we using? Is that approved by an organization that puts a stamp on it and says that, yes, we not only approve this tool and the security behind it, but also the data set that is has used for training, the content that it produced. And I think that might be, I'm not saying that that's a definite solution, that might be one way to go.
And, Katarina, from your perspective, the legal perspective, what are your reflections?
Yes, I think it's very important to create trust among the population and also at an individual basis. So we need to have effective regulation, effective enforcement. And I think that there is a lot of development going on, and we'll have to see, evaluate and assess how it will sort of play out in the end. Right now, I think it's all very new. We don't really know how it's going to work. But I think this is very important. This is also one of the purposes of the AI Act, is to be able to create trust in the AI systems on the market, or the European market. And I think that we need to work more on that. But I think we need to stress also enforcement. It's one thing to create the rules, but how do we enforce it? And what are the legal possibilities to use AI, for example, to fight other dangerous AI applications, for example? So I think that we need to create those kind of structures, this infrastructure, legal, organizational infrastructures, to be able to cope with this, because you often also need a legal support and a mandate to be able to use certain AI tools.
Would either of you like to expand on that, or shall we?
I can follow up on Asreen's. I think there's a role to play here for academic research, to like formal verification of some of these deep neural networks and large language models. I mean, they give spectacular answers often, but I mean, there are also some quite entertaining, very wrong answers. And I mean, we don't want that in, say, a control room. If you have AI solutions advising operators of power grids under attack, etc. I mean, we want some sort of performance guarantees to our algorithms. I don't think that is, we can say we have that today. And I think that is something we really, as a researcher, we need to think about. How do we prove things that we get something reasonable out of? Always get something reasonable out.
Yeah, a quick one. I think transparency and trust is important, especially on the data that is used. And I see a big improvement there. Everyone has used ChatGPT and Bing search, etc. Now they refer much more to the sources, giving me at least a bit more trust in that the findings that is generated is actually having some relevance, not only hallucinations.
And our time is almost up, but I really do want to circle back to this year's Nobel Prizes, because it's interesting. Now, considering that 2 of them featured AI, what do you think are the most important benefits of this recognition? Maybe more STEM students, or what do you envisage? Henrik or anyone?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can. Okay, I start.
Okay, let's start that way.
And I actually used AI to answer this, because we got the question earlier. No, but overall, I think that the recognition of this important research field attracts even more students and research funding. I think that is probably the primary benefit that we can see. All of us that thinks that this could solve many things in life science and even in defense. So I think attracting students and research fund, then I think the Nobel Prize is the best award ever.
Yeah, good. Henrik, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the attention is already on AI, maybe, I think, in the public, so maybe I'm not so sure it makes a huge difference. But indeed, I mean, I think the applications in basic sciences, I think, were quite interesting, especially, I think the chemistry prize was interesting. I mean, actually finding a new structures, I think that can be something that could excite, maybe future students.
Yeah. Katarina, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's important politically, and it also gives a platform to these Nobel Prize winners. Like Geoffrey Hinton has already been very public about his opinions regarding the dangers of AI, and I think it's very important in that respect, which also might affect the legal action that might be taken by our politicians. So I think that's very important. I also hope that it will not only mean that more engineers will be interested in AI and this field of, but also that we will get more new lawyers that will specialize in this area.
What do you think, Asreen?
And possibly even more human-computer interaction researchers and scholars. No, I share the same excitement, but at the same time, like on the academic and on the research side, I say that it slightly worries me because I feel like that it might become, and it has already become, a trend that everything goes around AI, and everything research that you do, it needs to somehow get connected to AI. And it shouldn't be that case. We should still be able to get funded and fund projects that they are away from AI. And making sure that that perspective is there, and making sure that other research topics and projects, they are also thriving.
Yeah. And lastly, Eva,
Yes.
what do you think?
When I saw the Nobel Prizes, I saw the human aspect. So the human actually defining the algorithms for AI, and also a really skilled human scientist using AI as a tool to solve a problem that they identified and AI could help solve. So I think it also shows where we use AI and how it can be used.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed the discussion and found it informative and thought-provoking. I know I did, and I hope that the insights shared here will be useful for you for the rest of the conference, which promises lots more interesting presentations, keynotes, and panels. Thank you so much to the panel, and thank you.